Hello, so now our answer, the module 4.5, the children's poetry. So it have a 4 question that prepared of Mr. J.K. Ranches. So first I will start with the question number 1. So from the 5 functions of poetry mentioned, that which among the functions seemed to be the most informative and would likely affect on how you teach poetry in the future? Cite a future scenario. So in my standpoint, the function that seems to be the most informative and when I teach poetry in the future is building reading, speaking, and listening skills. So first, building reading, it's because this is the first step you can appreciate the poetry. Why I said this is the first step? It's because if you know how to read, you can understand the deep meaning of the poem. So just like in teaching a grade 1 pupil. So we all know that some of them can't read and still learning. They are in the process. So on that, so they can understand the thought of the poem, so they become more curious. And they become curious, the child must be preferred to learn to read just to understood or relate to the poem. So next one is speaking. So is speaking because of the pupils know how to read, they have the confidence to recite and to speak. What do you understand on what they read? So they can give insight to the poem and imagine everything just to understand. You can express yourself, your speaking ability, your expressiveness is determined by what you say. Next one is the listening skill. So listening skill is, if you have this, you can focus and convey what was the thought of the poem. Listening is more than just a hearing. So it's a condition of receptivity that allows you to comprehend what you've heard. So it allows the listeners to participate fully in the communication process. So if they have been listening skill, for example, wherein in the middle of a discussion, and one of the teachers asked you a question, but your seatmate is very talkative and you're not listening on it, you can answer the question fully. Listening skill is very important. It's because this is to help you on how you speak up on what you understand on the topic, and you can focus on it and learn. So this build reading, speaking, and listening is very important, so you can convey and understand the meaning and the message of it. So when the students combine listening and speaking with reading, they will become better listeners, speakers, and writers, so that the readers and writers can connect effectively. So number 2 question. So now, from your personal observation, are there any differences or changes with how children's poetry and poetry in general are structured and presented before and nowadays? So describe these differences and changes. So from my standpoint, the poetry is a form of self-expression. So reading encourages us to connect and make sense of our lives. So whereas writing helps us to communicate our feelings and opinions on a topic. So children's social and emotional development can be helped by poetry. So that it may give a new perspective on other things. So in children's poetry before, they are more on structured poetry that important to use rhythm, meter, and deep thoughts, while today's poem to children, they're more motivating, and it just like they're making them a story just to provide a poem, nursery rhymes, and etc. They use spoken poetry and poetry in general before. They have a pattern to create a poem, and very deep and hard to understand. But nowadays, you can write whatever you want. You can write how you feel. It has a free verse and spoken poetry, just as said a while ago. So next, number 3. So explain this line from poet and writer Jeanette Winterson, that poetry, it isn't a hiding place. It is a finding place. So this line by Jeanette Winterson in her poetry is just like an introverted person. It says that it is a finding place because they find where they are comfortable, just like the introverted person that always hide themselves in a room just to feel secure, safe, peaceful, and comfortable. So they can do whatever they want to do. They can express themselves in a room that they know it was a secure for them. So many people say to introverted people that they always hiding themselves, but a little didn't know it is the place where they can be happy, they can express themselves, and they can be here is the room that they can focus. So next one is the number 4 question, which is, there are suggested the steps to follow in teaching poetry to the younger audiences. Why do you think it has the arrangement or flow? Explain your answer. So from my standpoint, it is important to have an arrangement or flow when teaching poetry. It's just to easily convey the message and understood the message of the poem. So it's easy for them to memorize before they recite it. This flow or arrangement helps the students to add words or knowledge to their vocabulary, so they can learn more about to read poetry in their mother tongues, which can help them connect their words.